Howdy, folks. It's Jones Grammar time, and this is lesson 3 on prepositions and infinitives. A little overview about what we'll be covering in this lesson. We'll be discussing infinitives and infinitive phrases. We'll also be discussing prepositions and objects of prepositions and prepositional phrases. Now, in our first 2 lessons, we discussed nouns and verbs. Here, we are adding to our study of nouns and verbs 2 types of phrases, namely infinitive phrases and prepositional phrases. Now, these are not the only 2 types of phrases. There are other types. What are phrases? Phrases are groups of words that belong together in some way. These are not the only 2 types of phrases. There are also things such as gerund phrases and participial phrases and absolute phrases. But these are 2 of the most common, and we're introducing them together for reasons that I'll make clear below. First of all, we look at infinitives. Basic definition of infinitive. An infinitive consists of 2 words, namely to, followed by the base form of a verb. Some examples: to run, to play, to eat, to sleep, etc. Now, what do we mean by the base form of a verb? Well, we haven't yet gotten to our lesson on verb tenses, and at that lesson we will go into the 4 different forms of verbs which you guys use on a minute-to-minute basis, whether you know it or not. But the base form, we can just say for now, is just sort of like the most basic form that you use when you use a verb. And that is what the infinitive is. It's to followed by the base form of a verb. An infinitive phrase consists of an infinitive plus any words that might be going along with it. For example, to run in the yard, to play in the playground, to eat sushi, to sleep until it is late in the morning. These are all examples of infinitive phrases. Now, here's a little note on infinitives. An infinitive is what we call a verbal. There are other verbals, but a verbal is a verb form that is functioning in the sentence as something besides the main verb. And as such, it is never part of the main verb. And this is where high school juniors and seniors, they often get confused, because I will give them a sentence. I will give them a sentence such as this one: I want to play baseball with my friends, and I will ask them, what is the verb? What is the main verb of this sentence? And they will all say, play baseball, or possibly to play baseball. That, however, is not correct. The main verb in the sentence is want, not play, not to play, not want to play. So, what I want you to think of now, and I want you to remember, is that whenever you have something that looks like a verb following the word to, although that is related to a verb in some way, it is not going to be considered the main verb. So the main verb in this sentence, I want to play baseball with my friends, is want. To play baseball is considered an infinitive phrase coming after the main verb want. Now, that's sort of everything you need to know about infinitives right now. And now we're going to go on to the somewhat larger issue of prepositions. The definition of a preposition is a little bit more vague than the definition for all of the other parts of speech. And that could be one reason why most high school juniors at the beginning of the school year are really sort of confused about what exactly a preposition is and often cannot identify them. In any case, the definition reads, a preposition is a word that relates a noun or a pronoun to another word in a sentence. Now, this seems very abstract until you look at some examples, but begin by keeping in mind that a preposition always is relating in some way to a noun or a pronoun. And if it is not doing that, it is not a preposition. Here are some common prepositions, and there are many, many prepositions. I can't ask you to memorize prepositions like I can ask you to memorize helping verbs, for instance, because there are hundreds of prepositions. But here are some very common ones: about, after, at, before, behind, by, during, for, from, in, of, on, since, under, and with. We also have compound prepositions. A compound preposition is a preposition that is made up of more than one word. And some examples are according to, apart from, because of, except for, in front of, instead of, next to, on top of, etc. And it is important to be able to recognize these words together as a compound preposition. And here we come to prepositional phrases. A prepositional phrase is a group of words that begins with a preposition and ends with a noun or pronoun called the object of the preposition. Let me read that one more time. A prepositional phrase is a group of words that begins with a preposition and ends with a noun or pronoun called the object of the preposition. Now that sounds abstract, and we will see some examples in just a minute. But I want you to keep in mind that prepositional phrases may occur at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of sentences. Now, we'll go see some examples of this. I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint slide here, and we'll go over to this notebook file for the smartboard. Sentence, I will go home after the game. The preposition in the sentence, folks, is after. And the prepositional phrase is after the game. Now, what I like to do when I diagram prepositional phrases, I like to circle the object of the preposition, which once again is the noun or the pronoun that ends the prepositional phrase. And that's how it always works with prepositions. They begin prepositional phrases that end with nouns or pronouns, which we call the preposition, with the object of the preposition. Next sentence, at 10 o'clock, the lights went out. Here, the prepositional phrase is beginning the sentence. The preposition is at, and the object of the preposition is a time expression, 10 o'clock. Next sentence, it was during fall break that I worked on this presentation. And the preposition in this sentence is during, and the object of the preposition is the compound noun, fall break. Okay? The next sentence, this is for you, the preposition is for, the object of the preposition is the pronoun you. Next, in the box, you'll find your present. Here we once again have a sentence which is beginning with the prepositional phrase. The preposition is in. Box is the object of the preposition. I looked under the rainbow and saw a pot of gold. This one, people, actually has two prepositional phrases in it. The first one beginning with under, and rainbow is the object of the preposition. The second one beginning with of, and gold is the object of the preposition. Under the rainbow, of gold. let's look at one sentence with a compound preposition, and this one, according to John. John is the object of the compound preposition according to. Now we can also put this preposition at the end, of course, as we can with the others. It will rain tomorrow according to John. The reason I've written this twice in reverse order, however, is that I want to tell you about a little aspect of prepositions involving punctuation. And the rule of thumb here, students often will ask me, do I need to put, in a sentence like according to John, it will rain tomorrow, do I need to put a comma after a prepositional phrase? Well, guys, in English, commas are sometimes necessary, sometimes they're just plain wrong, and sometimes they're optional. And when we're dealing with prepositional phrases at the beginning of the sentence, we're dealing with the optional category. You could put a comma after John so that it read, according to John, comma, it will rain tomorrow. On the other hand, it is not necessary ever to have a comma after the prepositional phrase in a sentence such like this. I think it often depends on just the feeling and how likely you are, if you're reading it out loud, to pause after the prepositional phrase. So once again, it's optional. Now, here's one thing I do need to tell you. It is never correct to put a comma before a prepositional phrase. That would be just plain wrong. So we need to pick up our eraser and get rid of that. If we're, oh gee, what did we just do? Okay. Okay, good. All right, now we do have something on the next page. And this is where we want to go to the dual display, turn that on. And this is why, as I said at the beginning, this is why in this particular lesson we're studying infinitives and prepositions together, because we have this overlap of to, which is sometimes used as the first word in an infinitive phrase, and to when it is used as a preposition. And this is just something we want to be aware of, is this distinction. I want to play, in this sentence, to is beginning an infinitive that ends in play. In the famous quote from Shakespeare, to be or not to be, that is the question. Two infinitives, the first to be and the second to be. Right? These are infinitives because they're followed by the base form of the verb. Whereas over on the right, we have to used as a preposition in prepositional phrases. Let's go to the movies. The object of that phrase, that preposition, is movies. I gave it to you yesterday. The object of to is you. And there you have it, the distinction between to in an infinitive and to in a preposition. And the last thing that I want to talk about here, guys, is, let's turn the dual display off. The last thing I want to talk about is the fact that you can get lots of sentences, in fact, lots of the sentences that you speak that come out of your mouth on a day-by-day basis are really just made up of strings of prepositional phrases. Half of what we say, it seems sometimes, is prepositional phrases. I gave the hat to the boy who sits in the back of the room next to the door. Now, here we get a little bit complicated because sometimes with phrases, and this goes for all phrases, not just prepositional phrases, there's a lot of overlap and you'll have phrases within phrases. You could regard everything after the word hat in the sentence as one big prepositional phrase, which in fact it is. To the boy who sits in the back of the room next to the door. But then you see within this very large prepositional phrase, you get a few more smaller prepositional phrases, such as in the back of the room. Well, in the back of the room, and then next to the door. And then you have three different objects going on here. We have back, we have room, we have door. And you could regard, in fact, this one in the back of the room next to the door, or just in the back of the room, from in to room. You could regard in the back of as a compound preposition. So guys, in grammar, as in many things in life, there are lots of gray areas. And I don't really care whether you regard this as one big prepositional phrase or as two or three smaller prepositional phrases inside of one big prepositional phrase, because in both of these things are true about this sentence. Okay, guys, so that is pretty much everything you need to know for now about infinitives and prepositions. And please come back next time for our fourth lesson on personal and possessive pronouns. Take care, everybody.